Steph, speaking of streaming a position, I see this in the show doc, and at first I was like, what the heck are you talking about? It says, is it possible to stream your wide receiver two? Now, that is an absurd take, and I have a feeling I think I know what you're going to say. And when I started to dig into it, I was actually a bit surprised. But Steph, you're not looking to ever stream your wide receiver two, but in a pinch, tell me your strategy on how you can get it done.
Yeah, so especially in weeks where you need more upside. So I'll give you an example last year. You're against the team that has McCaffrey and Lamar Jackson. You're against the team that has McCaffrey and the Patriots defense. Like, you just know that you're going to need some extra heat if you're going to win that week. That's where I love streaming the wide receiver two position. Or if you do need a floor play, maybe you don't have a single option. Guys are on buys. Guys are injured, especially this year with COVID. Like, let's say you don't have a second option. You're looking at Hunter Renfrow or somebody on the waivers. I may look to the waivers in that situation.
Yeah.
And
to
just plug
clarify
a guy
real quick, before you continue, to clarify, this is like assuming, like, obviously we would rather stream the flex spot, but this is maybe assuming you have three good running backs and you are really lacking at the wide receiver spot. Because to me, I normally start a wide receiver in my flex, especially in PPR.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like if I'm streaming wide receiver two, I'm also streaming my flex, but this is assuming you have a running back in the flex spot. And if you do, or your last receiver is your flex spot, this would essentially be streaming that last wide receiver that's in your starting lineup.
Exactly. And this is where deep shots of the week, guys, in season, we do a weekly segment called Deep Shots of the Week. We call it. We make crazy claims on these deep waiver names that we know are going to be there. If you just need upside, you can stream them at your flex or wide receiver two. Listen to some of the names that finished in the top 12 at some point last season. Demarcus Robinson had a week where he was the wide receiver one. John Ross had multiple weeks where he was in the top 5 on a weekly basis. Philip Dorsett had a week. Larry Fitzgerald, Nelson Aguilar, Zach Pascal. I would never tell you to start him because that would just mean I'm a bad fantasy analyst. But Corey Davis had weeks where he was a wide receiver one last year.
That's nuts.
And, I was just knocking it down left and right on our deep shots of the week last year. And so were you. But I was calling out Russell Gage. I called Darius Slayton when he put up 34 points on a week. Brashad Perriman. You were all aboard the Steven Sims hype train later in the year when he was the, wide receiver 9 across the last 4 weeks, something like that.
Yep.
If you feel weak at wide receiver and you need to hit for 1 week, I'm totally okay with streaming in that situation. So it's very situational. I'm not going to say, hey, definitely stream your wide receiver two spot and just grab all your running backs and your tight ends and your quarterbacks. No, don't do that. But if you need to stream the wide receiver two, I think it's
possible,
completely feasible. You can still win weeks. You can win fantasy championships. I've had playoff runs where I'm plugging in Russell Gage at my wide receiver two for multiple weeks. You can do it. So it's not a deal breaker.
If you had Steven Sims, Brashad Perriman, DeAndre Washington, and Boston Scott in your playoff run, you were probably winning games, which is ridiculous to say. But as the season goes on, this stuff gets crazy, especially this year in a COVID year. There's going to be opportunity that presents itself on certain weeks for certain players in good matchups that aren't normally going to be there. And that's where Steph and I will go in, we'll dig into the data, we'll say, hey, so this player has this opportunity this week. Russell Gage is playing with Calvin Ridley out, so he's going to have more opportunity to get targets. They're playing the Saints defense. They don't guard well against, the wide receiver 2 spot. That's a great matchup. That's why we call it out, and Russell Gage goes out and gets you 20 points. So they're definitely deep shots, and we try to keep it, in our deep shots of the week segment. We've plugged it a lot here, but players that no matter what league you're in, unless you have 20 bench spots in a dynasty, are going to be on the waiver wire. I think some of these calls last year, even looking at the big ones with Gage and Slayton and Perriman and Sims, I think they were 10% owned or less. So we're always looking at players that aren't the big waiver wire pickup of the week. They're just sitting there waiting to be plugged into a lineup. I know I started Zach Pascal last week, and he got me 20 points. So I definitely don't want to stream my wide receiver 2 spot. But if I'm in a pinch because of injuries or my team is just super thin and I'm stacked at running back and I'm not balanced at my wide receiver spot or my flex spot, it's something I'm definitely willing to do. And there are times where you just feel a little crazy, you get a little freaky, and you throw Steven Sims in the flex and see what he does. So Look, I love it, and I'm with you, Steph. And I'm going to make a way too early week 1 deep shot of the week prediction here. I think Jalen Hurd is a name to keep your eye on in San Francisco. Travis Benjamin opted out. Deebo Samuel is likely going to miss week 1. And then you've got Brandon Ayuk, who's coming in as a rookie with a shortened camp. Jalen Hurd redshirted last season, and they invested some decent draft capital in him. I think he was actually a third-round pick. So keep your eye out for Jalen Hurd. Don't take my word for it now. We got a lot that's going to change before the season, but I'm going to go ahead and throw a shot out there early here.
Yeah, third-round pick out of Baylor, Jalen Hurd. I don't mind it. I think he's an interesting dynasty stash as well. We'll see. We'll get there when we get there. I don't think we're going to have a deep shots maybe for week 1, but we can still call it and take some victory laps if we hit.